Knowing your worth doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't come with a moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand to be recognized. Most of the time, it shows up quietly. So quietly that you almost miss it. It shows up in the pause before you respond, in the moment you notice tension in your body and don't immediately explain it away, in the way you stop rehearsing conversations in your head just to make sure you don't come across the wrong way. Knowing your worth isn't confidence. It's restraint. You don't become sharper. You don't become colder. You become steadier. And that steadiness changes how you move through the world. You stop offering clarity to people who have already decided not to understand you. You stop stretching yourself emotionally to meet expectations that were never clearly stated. You stop filling in gaps that don't belong to you. Not because you care less, but because you finally care about yourself just as much. Knowing your worth doesn't make you demanding. It makes you discerning. You start to notice how often you used to compromise, not out of generosity, but out of fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, fear of being labeled difficult for wanting honesty, consistency, emotional presence. So you learned to soften your needs, to preface them carefully, to ask indirectly or not at all. You learned how to read the room before you ever spoke, how to downplay what you wanted before anyone had the chance to reject it. And at that time, it felt like maturity, like emotional intelligence, like being easy to be with. But eventually something in you notices the cost. Because shrinking never actually brought you closer to anything meaningful. It just taught people how little they needed to give to keep you around. That realization doesn't harden you. It clarifies you. You begin to notice patterns you used to excuse. You notice how often you were the one doing the emotional bridging. How often you were the one checking in, following up, or smoothing things over. You notice how familiar it feels to be the understanding one, and how rare it feels to be truly met. And instead of turning that awareness outward, you let it turn inward. You stop negotiating your boundaries internally before anyone even crosses them. You stop telling yourself you're overreacting when something doesn't sit right. You stop arguing with your own nervous system just to keep the peace. And this is where the power actually lives. Not in being untouchable. Not in pretending you don't feel. Not in becoming self-sufficient to the point of isolation, but in knowing you can feel deeply without abandoning yourself to be chosen. Knowing your worth doesn't mean you suddenly stop wanting connection. It doesn't mean you become detached or indifferent. You still care, you still hope, you still feel things fully, but you stop betraying yourself for the sake of proximity. You stop staying where you feel unseen. You stop over-investing in people who require you to carry the emotional weight alone. You stop offering access to parts of yourself that haven't been treated with care, and this isn't dramatic. It doesn't happen all at once. It shows up in small decisions. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of over-explain. You take space without needing to justify it. You let silence exist without rushing to fill it. You start choosing environments that don't require you to perform for acceptance. Spaces where you don't have to earn your place by being endlessly accommodating. And something subtle but important happens. Some people fall away. Not because you pushed them, but because the dynamic no longer works when you're no longer compensating for it. Others meet you where you are at without needing you to explain why. And you realize that the right spaces have always felt different. They don't require you to audition. They don't make you question yourself afterward. They don't leave you replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said too much or asked for too much. The right spaces feel steady. And once you experience that steadiness, it becomes very difficult to unsee the difference. Knowing your worth doesn't make you louder. It doesn't make you confrontational. It doesn't require a declaration. It's quiet. It's the calm decision to stop negotiating your value down to something smaller so someone else can feel comfortable. It's choosing alignment over approval, clarity over chaos, self-trust over reassurance. And once you feel that internal steadiness, even ever so briefly, you don't rush to give it away again. Because this time, you understand what it costs to lose. And that understanding changes everything. Because knowing your worth is a quiet kind of power.